generate our motivation. Again, with a sense of appreciation of our fortune, at being able to listen to teachings. A sense of gratitude that death has not come upon us yet, so we still have this opportunity. And also an awareness of the dukkha of samsara, and a determination, strong determination, to free ourselves from it, because it is indeed horrific. And not only to free ourselves, but to do what we can to free others as well. And then let that motivate us to put our full energy into practicing the path without taking things for granted, without making mountains out of molehills. And so to practice with intensity, but joy. So before we start, I want to give a little bit of background for today's teaching. I think that as a community, we should be very proud of ourselves, that we decided to have teachings tonight, because there were some definite interfering conditions. But we decided to go ahead and have the teachings and do them, even if it was dark and cold and so on. So that shows some joyous effort on the part of the community and some real dedication to the teachings. And then as it turned out, the conditions changed. Yeah. So for those of you listening in, 2 days ago, there was a really big windstorm, and the trees were going around and everything was all over the place. There were gusts up to 60 miles an hour, and our electricity went out about 3 p.m. Yeah, so it was pretty dark. There was just a little bit of a moon, but it was cloudy that night. So sitting in the dark, doing our practice, sitting in the cold, doing our practice. Then the next day we managed to turn the generator on, but the generator just gave us some light and enabled us to run the furnace in Ananda. Yeah, Gotami House and Chenrezig Hall got colder and colder. And, thank goodness our cooking was on propane now. Can you imagine? We used to have electric cooking, what that would have been like. So we were able to have hot meals, thank goodness. But then, again, in the evening, it's like pitch black, and, the generator isn't running, so it starts getting cold when it gets dark. And, and this morning also very cold. And some of us had just resigned ourselves to that it was going to be like this for, through the weekend and maybe even longer. We don't know. We had heard that, people had seen on the way to town to get gasoline for the generator, that there were like 5 or 6 places where trees had just crashed down on top of electric wires, and the wires were like this, you know, almost touching the ground. And also in Spokane, you know, huge debris and trees, fallen trees, and I guess 200,000 people were without light. Yeah. And we live out in the boonies, so we, you know, certainly weren't going to be the first ones that got taken care of. Yeah. And so this afternoon, again, you know, just going through with our daily schedule and everything we do, we did Tara Puja, and we prepared a very nice altar in Ananda Hall because it was warmer than the other buildings. We did Tara Puja, and as soon as Tara Puja was over, the lights came back on. And then somebody remembered that last year, when our lights went out for about 2 days, it was in the middle of Tara Puja that they came back on. Yeah? So, you know, just in case, I'm not saying anything, but just think about it. Yeah. So as a result, tonight, you know, we're warm and the room is lit up, and we're able to have the teachings in comfort. Yeah. Instead of, I was imagining it, because we were going to have to tell all of you who are live streaming, you know, that, I mean, you were going to have to call in. Thank goodness the phone got repaired, because the phone was out too. Because we were out for electricity, I think, about 50 hours. So, you know, but now we're sitting here in a lit room and we're warm. So what an incredible thing, yeah, that we always took for granted before. So really to appreciate. And a couple, no, it was just yesterday, wasn't it, when we took the goodies to the guys? Yeah, we had, we took a lot of the goodies that were in our pantry, and we took them to the PUD to distribute to all the linemen, because we know that they're working very, very hard in very difficult conditions, you know. I think some of them were even out working during the windstorm. And, you know, it's going to take them days and days and days to clear everything and get everybody's electricity back on again. So we really have to thank those people for their effort. Yeah. And we don't even know them to thank them. So we should be polite and kind to everybody, because anybody could have been the people who got our electricity back on. Yeah. Okay. So that's the story behind tonight's teachings. Okay, so meanwhile, somebody had sent me some, in case you're wondering, our internet is still not up. You know, the fiber optic line is down. But Newport, remarkably, I don't know how, they lost power for a few hours and got it back quite quickly. So somebody was able to take our computers in and download email. So I got an email with some questions about the teachings that I thought I would start with. Okay, so somebody is talking about verse 103. Yeah, let's turn this on here. Okay, so verse 103, when it says, just as they are. Yeah, if we look back at that. Come on. Okay, so the verse says, in this way, neither self nor non-self are ultimately perceived just as they are. Therefore, the great sage refuted both views of self and non-self. So remember here, self meant the person, and non-self meant the emptiness of the person. So seeing them just as they are means realizing that both of them are empty of true existence. Okay, that's what that means. And then verse 104, they had a question. As for what one sees, hears, and so on, the sage did not call them either true or false. If from one position its opposite arises, both do not exist in fact. Okay, so the question was, what does it mean if from one position its opposite arises? It means that if you negate true existence, then the person was thinking that things are totally non-existent. Okay? So when it says both in fact do not exist, it means both true existence and total non-existence don't exist. Okay, if anybody was wondering, about what that meant, from if one position its opposite arises. You negate true existence, come up with total non-existence. So both of those are wrong. Okay. Then verse 107 and 108, the person was having some difficulty with the whole idea of infinity, yeah, and there being, the idea that there's beginningless time, and all the Buddhas have once been sentient beings. Okay, so then she was saying, then my mind says, so there was at one point no Buddha because they were all once sentient beings. So there has to have been a first Buddha. Well, that logic only works if there was a beginning. Yeah, but there was no beginning. Yeah. Now our mind, especially if we grew up in a Christian culture, we're very stuck on beginnings. Yeah. There has to be beginning. Yeah. But, if I just go back to math class, because I really feel that I had some very good math teachers, and they, we talked a lot about infinity. And, there's a lot of puzzling things that go on in math, and, it really helps you expand your mind and think about things. So really, if you think of the number line with 0 here and all the minus numbers here and all the plus numbers here, can you find a beginning to the number line? Can you find an end to the number line? Yeah, you really can, because if you think of the past as -1, -2, -3, are you ever going to get to a beginning where, there must have been a first Buddha? No, because there's always another minus number that comes after that. So if your mind's quite stuck on there has to be a first Buddha, then who taught that first Buddha? The path. Yeah, then you're stuck with a Buddha before your first Buddha. So, to understand infinity, we have to release a lot of this preconception mind that kind of boxes us in, especially if you grew up with the idea of a creator. Yeah? And then there is saying, how did certain sentient beings create the causes for Buddhahood before others? Okay, if our Buddha nature is all the same, then how did the causes and conditions come about for someone to remove their ignorance faster than others? So that question is based on the idea that there was a beginning at which point everybody came out of the same cookie cutter. Huh?
They're off.
Yeah, you're racing. Who's going to become Buddha first? Yeah. No, everybody has the same Buddha nature, but people have different layers of obscurations. People have different karma that they've accumulated since beginningless time. So the potential is the same, but that doesn't mean that we're all equal in every regard. We're equal in the sense of having the Buddha nature and having the potential. But not everybody uses their potential in the same way. People have individual minds and think in different ways, and they're conditioned by different things in the past. So just because we're alike in terms of our minds being empty of inherent existence doesn't mean we're alike in all respects. Yeah. So again, if you're thinking that there was some time in the past where we were all equal in all respects, then again that seems to be coming out of the notion that there was a first creator who just went along with the cookie cutter and made everybody in the same form. But that's not how things came about. There was no beginning. And so, getting all wrapped up in, why wasn't there a beginning and this and that and the other, it actually, you spend a lot of time on a metaphysical question that is not going to solve your suffering at all. Yeah. So I think this is, and this is kind of the question, because we've been talking a lot, why the Buddha didn't answer certain questions, because they were based on the notion of a truly existent person. So this is the kind of question, was there some truly existent person that had a beginning or didn't have a beginning, or that has an end or doesn't have an end, but there's no truly existent person to start with. Yeah, and there's no truly existent creator. Yeah. And even if you posit a creator, because the idea of a creator makes you feel good, then you also have all sorts of questions, like, where did the creator come from? Who created the creator? So then there was something before the creator, so the creator wasn't the first thing. Yeah, and the creator had a creator, and that creator had a creator, and that creator had a creator, and you still wind up with infinity, don't you? Except positing the idea of a creator, you get into all sorts of tangles, like, why did the creator create, and why didn't they do a better job? And if they're omnipotent, why don't they solve the whole mess that they created? You really get into a lot of very difficult questions if you assert a permanent creator. Also because if a creator is permanent, how can they create? And if you say, well, the creator always was, there was no cause for the creator, then the creator's permanent, then the creator can't change, then the creator can't create. Okay, so you have to really keep applying reasoning to all of these things. And the easiest answer is there was no beginning, so stop trying to find one. Yeah? Yeah, why search for a beginning when there wasn't one? Okay, so I think that's it for the questions. Okay, shall we go on? So we were on verse 109, right? So 109. Such is the profound Dharma that is obscure to ordinary beings. That the world is like an illusion is the ambrosia of Buddha's teachings. Okay, so this is talking about the profound, meaning emptiness, is hidden for those who are not suitable vessels. So that's both samsara and nirvana lack true existence. That's the profound dharma that's very obscure to ordinary beings. Yeah? And the world and the sentient beings in it are like magical appearances in that they appear truly existent, but they aren't. So the way things appear to us is false. Yeah, and they don't exist in the way they appear. Yeah, but it's very difficult for us to identify that false appearance because it's all we've ever had, And so we totally believe it. So just identifying what that false appearance is, and in order to start questioning it, is very, very difficult. Okay, so for those who have very strong self-grasping ignorance and are extremely attached to things as they appear to exist, they can't understand the profound teaching. Okay, so when they ask the Buddha a question such as, is the self permanent, impermanent, both, or neither? Yeah, underlying that question is the assumption of a true existent person. And so how can the Buddha answer that question? Yeah, it's kind of like, is a truly existent person, does it have a beginning, does it have an end, Whatever you say, the person's going to have trouble with it because there's this idea that there's a real person in there. Okay, so if the Buddha tried to explain emptiness, which is the nectar, the ambrosia of his teachings, to people who aren't suitable vessels, they reject it, they criticize the Buddha Dharma, and in the process they can create very heavy negative karma. Okay, not so much because they criticize the Buddha Dharma, although that's pretty heavy because they're turning their back on what could help them, but because they usually become nihilistic and then with that view create all sorts of other negative karma. So from a few different perspectives, they create destructive karma. Then verse 110 and 111 come together. An elephant created through magical illusion might seem to arise and cease, but ultimately there is not any arising and ceasing at all. So too the world, like a magical illusion, might seem to arise and cease, but ultimately there is not any arising or ceasing at all. Yeah, so this is definitely relating to this question of the world having a beginning and end, and sentient beings having a beginning and end. Okay, so here's an example that Nagarjuna gives. So apparently in ancient India, there were these magicians who had special substances and special mantras, and they could take pebbles and sticks and say the mantra on them and put some substance. I think the substance went on the eyes of the audience, although maybe it went on the pebbles and sticks. I'm not quite sure. I'm not learned in magic. But anyway, through this, they could make sticks and stones appear as real horses and elephants. Yeah. So, although these were, magical illusions, they appeared exactly like real horses and elephants. Yeah, so that if you were there at the magic show, you would see horses and elephants in front of you, like real horses and elephants. Some of them might be being born, some of them might be dying, so they're arising, they're ceasing. You're watching the horses and elephants there, okay? And they look totally real, and you totally believe them, okay? Although they're an illusion, because there's absolutely no horses and elephants there. So in the same way, due to ignorance, we sentient beings have the appearance of truly existent people and a truly existent environment and things around us. And we hold the appearance of, truly existent people being born, truly existent people dying. We never doubt this appearance of that at all. When somebody's born, a truly existent baby. When somebody dies, a truly existent person died. Okay? But in fact, these truly existent persons that we're believing, who are born and die, they actually exist only like illusions. Yeah, there's no truly existent person there. There's just an appearance of the person, but not a real person. Okay, so it's good, to go back to this thing. Remember that there's no snake on that rope. Yeah, totally no snake on the rope. Similarly, when we impute person to the aggregates, there is totally no person there in, on, or anywhere near the aggregates. Completely no person. Yeah, just like there's no snake on the rope, and there's no horses and elephants, on the pebbles and stones, even though there's a very strong appearance of horses and elephants. Okay, so people might relate to the magical appearance in different ways. Okay, so for the audience who is under the influence of the spell of the mantra and the special substance, real horses and elephants appear, and they apprehend them as real. Okay, similarly to ordinary sentient beings, truly existent people, truly existent world appear. We assent to that appearance. We grasp it as true. Okay, now the magician. Okay, magician's situation is a little bit different. Yeah. Because he also sees the horses and elephants. So the substance must be put on the pebbles. Then it must be put on the pebbles and stones. So the magician is there. His senses are also deceived. He sees the horses and elephants, but he or she, this magician, knows it's a false appearance. They know there's no real horses and elephants there. Okay, so he's knows that they're empty of being real horses and elephants. So similarly, ordinary sentient beings who have realized emptiness conceptually through a correct inference, or Aryas in post-meditation time, when they've arisen, after their meditation on emptiness, they have the appearance of true existence, but they know that appearance is false. So they don't buy into it. They don't get involved in reacting to truly existent things. Now, there's a third group of people. They're the latecomers. Yeah, the magical show had already started, but they arrived late. Yeah, for these people, there's no appearance of horses and elephants, and they also don't grasp at there being horses and elephants. So in the same way, Aryas in meditative equipoise have no appearance of truly existent things, and there's no grasping at truly existent things either. Okay, this is actually the example that's used quite often by the Svatantrika Madhyamikas. Yeah. Okay, so let's. These examples are quite profound. So it's good to kind of look at them again. Okay, repeat them a little bit. Okay, so let's think about the spectators first. Okay, so not knowing that this is a magical display, nobody told them. The magician just put the substances there and said the mantra. They have no idea it's a magical display. They see horses and elephants with their visual consciousness. And mentally, they assent to that appearance and they say, there's real horses and elephants there. Okay, so in the same way, to ordinary people who haven't realized emptiness, things appear truly existent. We assent to that. We're under the influence of ignorance, which is like our spell and magical substance. And so, we never even consider the fact that maybe things don't exist the way they appear. Yeah, just as the people in the audience never even doubt the existence of horses and elephants. Okay? Now, for the magician, the horses and elephants appear, but he doesn't assent to the appearance because he knows that it's false. So his visual consciousness has the appearance of horses and elephants, but his mental consciousness says, this is unreal. Okay? So he doesn't, he knows it's only an appearance. He knows it's a false appearance. Okay? So similarly to people who have realized emptiness conceptually in the Aryas and post-meditation time, phenomena still appear truly existent, but because they have had some realization, either inferentially or direct, of emptiness, they know it's a false appearance. So they aren't deceived by it, and so they don't get attached to those things, because it's through the ignorance that grasps all those things as real that then we get attached and we get angry. So these Aryas, the attachment and anger doesn't come up for them because they know, they're not real things. Okay, and then again, the latecomers, so their eyes haven't been affected by the substances, nor have their mental consciousness been affected, and so they neither see the things nor grasp at the horses and elephants. So similarly, Aryas and meditative equipoise have only the appearance of emptiness. There's no appearance of truly existent things, and so they don't grasp at that. Now, you might wonder, well, that all sounds nice, but so what? Okay. Well, for the spectators, when a magical elephant charges at them, they're terrified because they think it's a real elephant. Yeah. When the horses come galloping, they're wild horses, and they come galloping towards them, the spectators get really afraid because it looks like real horses. So similarly for us, when things happen in our environment because we think they're truly existent, we very easily fall prey to attachment to things that appear beautiful, and fear and anger to things that, don't, that appear in a very different way. Okay, so this is the disadvantage of having the ignorance, is that we're so reactive. The magician sees the elephants and the horses charging, but knows there's no elephants and horses there. So he's not afraid. He just watches the horses and elephants, charging, looks at the spectators and says, if they only knew, they wouldn't be so afraid. Yeah. The latecomers, so that's like the people who have realized emptiness. They see truly existent things, beautiful things, horrific things, but they don't see them as real, so they don't have that emotional reaction to them. Meanwhile, the latecomers don't even see the horses and elephants charging. They aren't afraid. So similarly, in meditative equipoise, the Aryas don't see all these false appearances, and so no chance of reacting to them emotionally. So I was thinking a little bit about this, like how to think about it, how to give an example of how we grasp at true existence. and how our mind imputes things. So I was thinking, if somebody, from another culture said, ickly bickly boo, and, you don't understand their language, they say, ickly bickly boo, and, doesn't mean anything to you. You don't get attached. You don't get you aren't offended. But if somebody tells you that ickly bickly boo means you're, a defective jerk who's, not worth anything, then when somebody says ickly bickly boo, you respond. Yeah. When nobody told you what it was, you heard the same sound. No emotional response. Somebody tells you something, you impute meaning on that sound, and all of a sudden somebody says ickly bickly boo, and you go, who do you think you are talking to me like that? And you get very upset. Then if another person later tells you, oh, that guy translated it wrong, ickly bickly boo means you're a wonderful, kind person, then again you would impute something new, and next time somebody said ickly bickly boo, you would go, thank you very much, I'm very flattered. Yeah. Is any of it real? Is any of it real? It's totally imputed by conceptuality, isn't it? It's just those sounds. And at the end, you're not sure which person actually was the correct translator. Yeah. But look how emotionally you went from balance to to, and it all came from our own mind. Ickly bickly boo from inside has no meaning. Okay? So I was thinking, sometimes how, people say things and, or they do things, and we get so offended and so insulted, don't we? Yeah? I mean, we just get really riled up. Somebody does some, I don't know, they don't even have to try, but we're imputing stuff on there, and then we get really riled up. And then even if the person afterwards says, I didn't mean it that way. Yeah, you misunderstood. We don't believe them. We say, well, okay, yeah, you didn't really mean it, but you did. Because our mind is still grasping at whatever happened as being truly existent. Yeah, so even though somebody is giving us new information, we're rejecting the new information because we're saying, no, I understand what it was. This is how it appeared to me before. This is what it is. So it's like the person who first learned ickly bickly boo means, you're a decrepit idiot. And then when somebody said, no, it actually means you're a wonderful, kind person, they say, no, it still means I'm a decrepit idiot. So next time somebody says ickly bickly boo, yeah, I bet. Because they're still holding it onto it as truly existent with the previous thing they learned about it. Yeah.
What does it really mean?
Well, it's an example.
You have to guess on that one.
But this is an example of how we are. Sometimes people come to apologize to us. We say yes, but we don't really believe it. We're still holding on to that grudge. They really meant, because we're grasping it to existence. Yeah.
Especially
especially if we have a feeling about ourselves that's pretty close to what they say, and then we have to reify our own self.
Right. Yeah. So especially if already we're having uncertain of who we are or not feeling good about ourselves, then we really grab onto it. And then even somebody apologizes or, says you misunderstood it, we refuse to really believe it. So I was thinking, for people like that, when we still grasp on, even though we've received the correct information, then what we need to do is really practice hearing, things that we don't like said, so that we can get accustomed to, this isn't true. But, in order to ease our way into it. So I was thinking what we need is like a little jack-in-the-box. Yeah. So you press something and jack-in-the-box pops up and says, "You're a decrepit idiot." And then we push him down, and then he pops up again, "You're a decrepit idiot." And until we can listen to the jack-in-the-box say that and know that it's not true, that it's only a jack-in-the-box. There is no person in that jack-in-the-box saying it. But you see, when we're holding true existence, even the jack-in-the-box says, "You're a decrepit idiot." Oh, how dare you insult me and talk to me that way? I'm so mad at you. Yeah, it's the same thing, isn't it? So some of you aren't laughing. But it's really what we need to do when we're very sensitive about certain things, and like the slightest bit of something ticks us off. We need to have that jack-in-the-box that does it again and again and again, so that we really know that's just a jack-in-the-box. Why am I reacting to what a jack-in-the-box is saying? Yes? You're a decrepit idiot.
When I was younger, I could have done that easier in some ways because I was more naive and I didn't realize the level of ignorance and afflictions that we all have.
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't. Even when I moved here, I didn't have that. I really had more of a sense that people are kind-hearted. I really did.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually have learned that we all are very afflicted. And so what happens is a lot of times when these things happen is the jack-in-the-box isn't being neutral.
But it's only a jack-in-the-box.
I think that if I'm making any big mistake, it's holding the afflictions as truly existent and not being able to let go of that.
Yeah, that's part of it, holding the afflictions truly existent, holding yourself as truly existent, holding the other person as truly existent, and believing that your interpretation of their words and actions is correct.
Right. I understand my interpretation is wrong.
Uh-huh.
But I also don't think the jack-in-the-box is so neutral.
But it's just words. You're imputing a motive. You're saying that the jack-in-the-box isn't so neutral. The jack-in-the-box doesn't have a mind.
Yeah, if you're an example, but what the real life things are people.
They're people.
Sometimes are afflicted and sometimes aren't.
Yeah.
Sometimes have good motivation, sometimes
But
don't.
it doesn't matter whether they're afflicted or not.
Why? How am I going to trust somebody?
Because it doesn't matter if they're afflicted or not. It matters your reactivity to it.
Yeah, I agree.
Because if they're afflicted, okay, if somebody says to me, "Oh, children, you're so wonderful," and it looks like they're really sincere, but they're doing it to manipulate me, I will fall for it. If I'm aware that it's a jack-in-the-box, I won't fall for it. I'll remain neutral. If they say to me, you're a decrepit idiot, also I won't feel insulted because I'll remain neutral. Because it's only sounds. Whether they may have meant you're a decrepit idiot. But who cares? Why do I care?
Because I love the other one and I don't want the other one to think bad about me.
Yeah, but that's our grasp, that's our attachment. And that attachment is based on, I'm a truly existent person, and they're a truly existent person. And their opinion of me is real and solid, and it must be correct. Their opinion of me is one blip of energy that arose and ceased. Yeah, that's all it is. Yeah.
I agree with what you're saying, but I think the thing that, I don't know if the Jack in the Box I'm doing so well with.
Yeah. But
What
yeah.
I do think helps me is when we talk once, I think, Venerable, you used the expression of these, it's something that we've been learning with Lachelle, is this finding of the moments when I cave in, and this thing of kind of standing more confidently in your integrity on your own 2 feet. That helps me.
Yeah. So, as with everything, every affliction we have, you can approach it through the realization of emptiness, or you can approach it through another kind of understanding. Yeah? So, somebody insults you, it still appears truly existent, but you say that's the result of my previous karma. And then, okay, I won't get angry because it's just the result of my previous karma. Yeah? So you can use that antidote too.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Okay?
I
Yeah.
actually use a lot of them.
Yeah. So we develop skill in a lot of antidotes. And the example, seeing the emptiness of something is not so easy because we hold on to that appearance of true existence because we don't recognize it's false. We totally believe it. Those horses and elephants are charging at me. And even the magician says to me, I put a spell on them. There's nothing that's going to hurt you. I don't believe the magician. And I scream and faint, and, because horses and elephants are chasing me. It's like in a dream. When you have a nightmare, it appears so real, doesn't it? But if you're able to, when you wake up, then you go, oh, that was just a dream. It wasn't real at all. So in the same way, when we're having experiences and we grasp them as truly existent, we're totally trapped in them. So emotionally reactive. If we were able to see them as empty and just as dependent arisings, we wouldn't be so reactive.
And the attachment as well.
Yeah, the attachment, the anger, it just, like we say it is what it is. Yeah, it is what it is. Nothing. It has no more meaning than what I impute on it. And even if somebody else had a rotten motivation and they really intended to insult me, so what? So what? Why does that hurt? Because we believe what they say. Why in the world do we believe what they say? Yeah. And who do we think we are? We're taking that on as like I'm a real person and what they're saying about me is real. But who is this person they're talking about? Is it my body? You're a decrepit idiot. Is my body a decrepit idiot? Are my feelings decrepit idiots? Are my discriminations decrepit idiots? What about my volitional factors? What about my consciousness? What exactly is a decrepit idiot about me?
Everything.
Thank you. but to really sit there and say, yeah. In the same way, when somebody says, oh, you're such a marvelous person, you're so kind. Well, what is kind about me? This body is kind, my feelings, discriminations. You know, what is kind? Okay, there may be a few kind a mental factor of kindness that comes and goes, but what person is there that's kind? You know, so people praise us, people insult us. You know, just think of, wouldn't it be nice to be free of not having attachment and aversion to what other people think about us? Yes. And what other people say about us? Wouldn't it be nice to not be, so emotionally sensitive? Yeah?
Incredible.
It would be so nice, whatever they say. Oh, hi, Jack in the Box. You're so sweet. Huh?
Well, it reminds me of when young kids at school would learn to swear, or they would be taught swear words in another language.
Uh-huh.
And then they'd say it to me, or they'd say it to somebody else. It was like nothing.
Yeah.
Because it's just sound.
Yeah.
In that case.
Yeah. So when little kids, do they know what it means?
No.
Oh, so little kids. Yeah. My parents have this great story about me.
Okay, let's hear it.
Yeah, of course I don't remember it. But I was like just learning to talk or something. I was really, really young. And they took me to see my grandma. And my grandma's holding at me, oh, my golden cherry. And I just say to her, fuck you.
Poor grandma!
Poor mama.
Where did you learn it?
And my parents are like, oh no, what did she just say? And I was a kid. I had no idea what it meant. No idea. It was just sounds I must have heard somewhere, So.
Actually learning the meaning of everything.
Yeah, isn't it?
How we first hear it, how it comes out of a person's mouth, what their eye expressions are, what they tell us, and then we just keep building on the meanings until things are so solidly, permanently that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder, my parents knew what it meant. My grandma, she was a refugee, an immigrant. I wonder if she knew what it meant. Yeah? Yeah, I wonder. So. Okay. Enough stories. Okay, so verse 112 and 113 come together. An illusory elephant does not come from anywhere or go anywhere. Remember, because before we were talking about arising and ceasing. So, if there's no real elephant and no real horse, then how does a horse arise and how does that horse cease? So this is relating to that question that people would ask the Buddha about based on their assumption of a truly existent person. Is there a beginning of the person? Is there an end? Does the world arise? Does the world cease? Both, neither. Okay, it's related to that. So an illusory elephant does not come from anywhere nor go anywhere. Since it is merely a manifestation of mental confusion, it does not ultimately exist. So too, the world, like a magical illusion, does not come from anywhere nor go anywhere. It means inherently come from anywhere or inherently go anywhere. Since it is merely a manifestation of mental confusion, it does not ultimately exist. So, in fact, illusory horses and elephants, they don't come from anywhere, do they? Does an illusory horse have a mother? Yeah? Even if you see a foal coming out of a mama horse, does that illusory foal have a mama? No. It's just an appearance. You know, when the horse dies or the elephant dies, yeah, is there really an elephant dying? No. Yeah. When we're watching a movie on TV, yeah, and the people fall in love and kiss, are there really people, you know, in love kissing? No. Yeah. When they both die in a car accident, are either of them dying? No. It's just an appearance on the screen. Yet look, and we know it's an appearance on the screen, don't we? We know that. So we're even dumber than the magician. The magician doesn't get freaked out at the stampeding horses and elephants. But we watch the movie and boy, our emotions, woo, 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 woo. We take the appearance very much as real, don't we? Yeah. And it's just actors and pixels. I mean, it's not even actors, it's just pixels on a screen in the shape of people.
When you talk like this, I can feel my mind go from holding on to something, and if I let go, then you know, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Or that there's really nothing there, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
So bouncing back and forth.
Right.
And forth.
Back and forth. Like, okay, if I stop having emotions regarding the movie, you know, maybe I'm just going to be like a dead person, you know. Or what would be the other extreme? Then I say, if I just see it as a movie and nothing's really happening, then there's no enjoyment in my life.
Nihilism, nothing.
Yeah, there's nothing there, so why watch it? Yeah. So we go very much one extreme to the next, don't we? Yeah. Because in some way, too, we're very addicted to our emotions. You know, why do we watch a movie? To have an emotional thrill. Don't we? Yeah, to get out of ourselves and have an emotional thrill living vicariously as somebody else. Yeah.
Having that attachment to these emotions, is it the same thing as it derived from being attached to have a body?
It may be related to that, but the attachment to the emotions, I think, is something a little bit different than, you know, attachment to the body or whatever. We may be attached to the emotions because we look at what we think is a real body and somebody's, you know, getting hurt in the movie or whatever, and we react to it. But we like going up and down on some level, don't we?
I had a few times the experience of the thought rising up, like you shared the other day, enlightenment, like it's boring.
Yeah.
There's something like
Yeah.
it's going to be what?
Yeah.
Thing.
Yeah.
Boring.
And that's what I mean, you know. We're very attached to our emotions. Yeah. Why? Because our emotions, you know, make us alive in a truly existent way. There's a truly existent person. These are my emotions. I feel, because there's the feeling of whatever we're feeling, there must be a real me who feels it. Yeah? So there's a lot of addiction to that feeling of me that, the up and down emotions bring. And a fear of, well, I'm just going to be a blob if I don't have those. But we never stop to think, what about having compassion? Yeah? A Buddha doesn't have those afflictive emotions, but a Buddha sure has compassion. Yeah? So not, we can give up the afflictive emotions, we still have compassion. But then we even think of compassion as, oh, I see somebody hurting, oh, I have so much compassion. And then we're back to, there's a real me feeling that. But that's not compassion, that's personal distress. Okay? There can still be the feeling of compassion without grasping at a truly existent person who feels it.
So we're attached to our mental confusion.
Huh?
So we're attached to our mental confusion.
Oh, we sure are. We sure are. The Jack in the Box says, you're a decrepit idiot. The same way people see themselves in the mirror and they get angry at the reflection in the mirror. Yeah? I mean, even things we know don't exist as they appear, we still react to them emotionally. Yeah, you're in a desert, you see water, you run towards it, and you say to yourself, as it's a mirage. Do you still keep walking?
Because you want to make sure that it's actually just a mirage.
Yeah, you still go there, don't you? Yeah. Even though you know it's a mirage, you still go there because just in case maybe it's not a mirage. Yeah. So interesting, isn't it, the way our minds work? Okay. So, just kind of step back a little bit and think, how would I feel and therefore react and respond and interact with things if I didn't perceive them as being so real? Yeah. And watch how you said this fear of, well, then everything has useless and purposeless and there's nothing there at all. Yeah, how quickly we go to that. But that's not true. There is a Jack in the Box. He's not a truly existent Jack in the Box. Yeah. We can talk to our Jack in the Box. I remember once on a plane, I wasn't listening to the movie, but I was watching. It was some old movie or something, and with some beautiful damsel, how they used to have the black and white movies, and Greta Garbo kind of person, in it. And she was in a dark room with just a little bit of light, and then she sees a skeleton and she freaks out. Yeah! And I thought, oh, she could talk to the skeleton. Yeah? See, there is the option of talking to the skeleton, instead of just freaking out because the skeleton comes near you. Yeah. So, really made me think when you see things as truly existent, your minds don't give you many options for how to feel or how to act. Yeah, there's a skeleton, freak out. Instead of there's a skeleton, oh, I've never talked to a skeleton before. How do you do? What does it feel like to be a skeleton? Yeah. Why not talk to a skeleton? Okay, so 114. The nature of the world transcends all three times, except for being designated in conventional terms. How could it be ultimately either existent or non-existent? Okay, so when you negate things being ultimately existent, which means truly existent, or non-existent, meaning totally non-existent. Yeah. If you negate both of those as being false, because there's difficulties with both, then the only option is things exist by designation. You know, His Holiness repeatedly says if things are not truly existent, the only other way they can exist is by mere designation, because they do exist. So being beyond truly existent arising and ceasing in the past, present, or future, objects and people are mere conceptual designations, not to be found in their bases of designation or separate from them. Like illusions, they appear and they do things, but are neither ultimately existent nor totally non-existent. They exist by mere name, they're mere appearances. Like illusions, there's nothing that we can point to and say, this is the world or this is the person. Yeah. And you know, it's interesting to think about, you know, when somebody dies, somebody you know, if you take an example of somebody you know, when that person dies, it's like that person is not there. Yeah? And we have this feeling like they must still be the same person, but they're just not attached to their body anymore. Yeah? And we imagine it's the exact same person in the bardo and the exact same person taking rebirth. Yeah? And we think that the person who died was a real person. Okay? But if they were a real person, how could they, there's something going on. We see them as a real person, but if they were a real person, how could they cease so that we don't see them? And they don't exist anymore. So then we go back to making them a real person. Oh, it still is my friend, but now they're in the bardo, the exact same person. And now, oh, there's Susan, in another body. Yeah, oh, there's Susan, but in a male body. Well, I guess we'll change her name, but it's still Susan, and she'll remember me, and she'll talk to me, as if it's this inherently existent person. Yeah. Because we either do that, or if we think that the person no longer exists, then we get frightened, But when you really think about it, when the person you know dies, that person, that specific person, no longer exists. The continuity of that person exists. But John Doe doesn't exist. Because John Doe was just merely existed by being merely labeled on the combination, the collection of body and mind, or independence upon that collection of body and mind. The collection is no longer a collection, it's two different things. Yeah? So that particular John Doe that we knew, is no longer there. And the continuity of the consciousness in the bardo and in the next life is not John Doe with the same personality that we knew him when he was alive. So it really, when you think like that, it was like, well, it looks like there was a real person who died, but who was that real person who died? Yeah? If there's not a real person after they die, then who was the real person who died? Are you getting what I'm saying? Yeah? And then if you think of that person, you trace them back. Maybe they died when they were 80, when they were 60, when they were 40, when they were 20, when they were 10, when they were a little infant. We have the same name, different basis of designation, but we think it's still the same person. But when we think for one moment longer, we realize it's not the same person. Yeah, that same person who was born is not the same person who died. Is not the exact same person. There's no truly existent self there. Okay. And then, we watch our mind go, oh, but there is a truly existent self. There is a permanent self, but it just changes as it goes through. It's a permanent self, but it changes as it ages. But then you go, wait a minute, something can't be both permanent and impermanent. That doesn't work. Obviously, the person is impermanent. So who exactly do I think they were? That is the same, when they're a baby, when they're a teenager, when they're in the, all throughout their life, and now in the bardo, I think they're the exact same person. That's totally ridiculous. Yeah? So I did this a lot with both of my parents, when they died. And it's just, you look and it's like, they seem so real. But there's really nobody truly existent there. And there never was. Yeah? So then you get some feeling like, oh, yeah. When they say no rising and no ceasing, it means no truly existent person is arising, no truly existent person is ceasing. But we gave that label to that ever-changing, that basis of designation didn't remain the same for the next moment. Not the body, not the mind, constantly changing. But because we gave it a label and we thought about it as one person, we attributed a mode of existence to that person that they don't really have. Yeah. So then you kind of get it thinking about somebody else, but then you try and apply it to yourself. No, I exist. I'm here. I'm the same person, truly existent person. I'm going to be exactly the same, when I was a baby till now, even after I die, I'm still going to think in English. Yeah? Because all of our thoughts, whatever language you grow up thinking, I'm still going to think in that language. Huh? Forget it. Yeah, when we die, that knowledge of that language is gone. So what are we going to think in? And it's interesting too, when you learn another language, to see how it changes your way of thinking. Yeah, because they have different ways of saying things and different meanings for things. And it really changes the way you think when you learn a different language. So, anyway, think about that.